I'm Ranjini George from the School of Continuing Studies, University of Toronto, and I'm speaking on Stoicism and forgiveness. I'd like to begin with a second of mindfulness practice. I invite you to listen to the sound of the bell that calls you back to your true home. So listen to the sound of the bell that calls you back to your true home. So what does Stoicism teach us about forgiveness? And what does Marcus Aurelius, who wrote the Meditations, say about the importance of forgiveness? So Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, which is his journal that he kept for himself, he says that every morning we should prepare ourselves with the possibility that we may meet meddling, ungrateful, violent, treacherous people. But even as we may be harmed by them, we remind ourselves that their actions come from ignorance and that we are ultimately one body. We are interconnected. So the question of the point of interconnection is something very important in Stoic thinking. The feeling, I am harmed, gives rise to anger and suffering. If we hold on to feelings of unforgiveness and harm, in a sense, we become puppets. We become slaves to the actions of others. We lose our freedom. As Epictetus, another Roman Stoic, said, it is not events that upset us. It is not events that upset us, but our judgments of things. It is not events that upsets us, but our judgments of things. Or as Marcus Aurelius reminds us, we have control over our minds, not on outside events. The Stoics remind us that no one can take away our freedom of being the person we want to be, to live in accordance with wisdom, justice, which can translate as kindness, courage, and moderation or temperance. We may be deeply hurt by the actions and words of others, but we recognize that their behavior may come from ignorance. Instead, we turn the spotlight to ourselves. We work with our own shortcomings. Instead of directing our energies on blame and complaint, we direct our energies on cultivating our own character and living the kind of life that we want to live and being the person that we would like to be. We leave those who have harmed us on their own path, their own character. Instead, we reclaim our power by deciding to have the intention to forgive. And we do this for ourselves. One of the things that I have is a Dalai Lama calendar. Dalai Lama Tenzin Gyatso, the spiritual leader of Tibet, he says in one of his quotes, he says, when we forgive, we take back control of our own fate and our feeling. When we forgive, we take back control of our own fate and feeling. We become our own liberator. Self-defeating attitudes arise out of their own accord, but they arise not out of their own accord, but they arise out of ignorance. So we recognize that someone else's actions may have arisen out of their own ignorance. He says success is found within ourselves. So the Dalai Lama reminds us that when we forgive, we take back control of our own fate, of our own feelings, and most importantly, that success is found within ourselves. So forgiveness, of course, is anything but easy. I struggle with it myself, but philosophies such as those of the Stoics give us good medicine. We possess an antidote, a corrective. We feel the hurt, but now, instead of feeding that hurt and directing all our energy there, we remind ourselves of what kind of character we want to possess, what kind of virtues we want to cultivate, what kind of life we want to lead. And we now have the intention to direct our thoughts and energies in a certain direction. We don't fight, we don't push away unforgiveness. Because what you resist, as the wisdom teachers teach us, persists. But we just let it stay in the room. So the thought arrives, she did this, how could she? I am so hurt, it was so unwarranted. We think this, but we remember the teachings, we remember our intention, we remember the good medicine. We focus our energy on what this wrong gives us the opportunity to do. If we didn't experience wrong, if we didn't experience ignorant actions, if we didn't experience situations where we felt we were treated unkindly, we would not have the opportunity to practice patience. We would not have the opportunity to practice endurance. We would not have the opportunity to practice forgiveness. Because then it would just be a theoretical understanding. So every opportunity, all this stuff that upsets us, this unforgiveness, these hurts, these complaints, they give us the opportunity to develop endurance, to exhibit patience, and yes, forgiveness. So the forgiveness, even though it's our intention, may not come easily. And as I said, just let it stay in the room. Elizabeth Gilbert, in her book, Big Magic, when she talks about the writing path, she says she tells fear, you can stay in the passenger seat, but you're not driving the car. So we do the same thing with unforgiveness. We may have the intention to forgive, but we don't feel forgiveness, but we let it stay in the passenger seat and not drive the car. This, of course, does not mean that if a situation is intolerable, you don't walk out. You do. This teaching does not advise idiot compassion, because compassion for others begins with self-compassion. And as the wisdom teachers teach us, protect your mind at all costs. Protect your mind, your beautiful mind at all costs. Your life, your character is yours. So external events like a global pandemic, a sudden illness, a financial downfall, a betrayal, an abandonment, these are things that are externals and we have no control over. As Marcus Aurelius, who wrote the Meditations, writes, the best way to avenge yourself is not to become as they are. We practice these teachings every day. There is no magic pill. The growth is incremental, it's slow, and it's something we have the aspiration to do every single day. Marcus Aurelius writes, he says, when the force of circumstances causes you in some sense to lose your equilibrium, return to yourself with all speed, for you will be more in control of the measure if you return to it again and again. So if you have these intentions, intentions are very powerful. They can direct the flow of your life. If you have these intentions and you bring them to mind every morning, and at the end of the day, you look at yourself, how did I do? What did I do well? What did I leave out? What did I omit to do? Pythagoras talks about that in his golden verses, this moral self-examination at the end of the day. If you practice it, it gets stronger. So whatever you practice, if you practice anger, if you practice unforgiveness, whatever you practice will get stronger. So if you practice compassion and you practice forgiveness, you practice mindfulness, if you practice writing, I'm a writer, you will get better at it. So this Stoicism is seen as a therapy. This ancient Greco-Roman philosophy is seen as a therapy of the soul. It's not just theoretical, abstract thinking, but it is a way of life. It is a daily practice. It is a lamp unto your path. It is a path to reclaiming your freedom and living eudaimonia, the good life. The good life is a life that is directed by virtue. Training your mind and working with our feelings is not easy. But instead of focusing your energy in trying to control those things over which you have no control, externals, you focus your energy on yourself, on your own mind, on training your own mind on this small area of control. And the Stoics promise that this is eudaimonia, this is the good life. This is the kind of life where you actually flourish. You use your energy to accomplish the work that you wish to do in this world and to have the character that you wish to have. We are all on this path together, each one of us. We are capable of doing immeasurable good and living happy lives despite the challenges that life brings us. The ancients knew this. I begin my day by reciting one of the verses by Cleanthes, who's an ancient Greek Stoic, a student of Zeno, and he lived between 330 and 230 BC. But I say his words every day as inspiration. The world of the ancients was no different from our world. Marcus Aurelius lived during the time of the Antonine Plague, where millions of people, 5 million people, lost their lives. He lived during the time of the Marcomannic Wars. He also lived during the time of civil war. And in the midst of that, he distilled Stoic philosophy and wrote this journal to himself. So we're going to just sort of close again as we began with the bell. Bring to mind your own intentions, because this is the power that you have of the character that you wish to have and the life that you wish to lead, because that is within your control. Thank you.